we're setting up for youth orchestra. Last night there was a concert, so all this is left from the audience seating, and we don't need nearly like all of it for the youth orchestra. So we're just trying to take out the extra chairs. And then tonight we're gonna be setting up for another rehearsal for the professional orchestra. So we'll have to take all these chairs out and put in new chairs, and then we'll have to put these chairs back on Tuesday for youth orchestra again. And then we'll have to reset for the professional orchestra again after that.
We usually don't have a whole lot of room out on the wall, so we end up sticking these in one of our side rooms, one of our practice rooms. It also doubles as a storage room, which is nice and not nice. As we get more gear, more equipment, we have to find new and creative ways to find spaces for them. So this is new home. As long as we don't block the fire extinguisher, we're good. Put all the percussion up here on the stage as well, so everything's got to go. Pardon me.
I think starting down. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so now we're in for, we need to move those cellos to this side and those cellos to that side. So the reason that we have to do this is because that 9-foot grand up there is too big to roll down the ramp and through the doorways. So we have to switch around the rehearsal so that the piano soloist can play with the orchestra. Another complication of this is that because the piano faces that way, then the lid opens against this wall. We actually have to take the lid off so that the piano can actually be heard by the musicians during the rehearsal. If we had a regular rehearsal space, none of this would probably have to happen, but we work with what we have. If only we had a space for them to put all their equipment during rehearsals or between rehearsals or after rehearsal.
This is what we use to store the timpani in when we're traveling, because they're pretty fragile instruments. Even though they're huge, they're actually pretty fragile. So we just like to keep them safe.
We don't want to make 2 trips to the Neel, so you've got to double check, maybe triple check every count that you have. Chairs, stands, percussion, everything. This is what happens when you travel. You gotta make sure you got everything. And a little extra never hurts, because you never know what's gonna happen.
We try to put like the biggest, heaviest things in the closest to the cab, so it's the back to me, but it's really the front of the truck. That's the chairs, the timpani cases, and then after that we start putting in like the xylophone and the vibraphone, because they're still big pieces. And then we put in like a bunch of miscellaneous stuff like microphones and podiums and stands. So it's pretty specific, but we kind of have a rhythm, so luckily it's all figured out already. Usually I would say it takes us like 40 to 45 minutes when we don't have chairs and stands, so I think we did pretty well. And we're trying to be there at the venue by 9, so we have like 20 minutes to get there, and I think it should be okay.
The first trip out there is always kind of challenging, or there's always obstacles, there's always things that you find that they've forgotten about over the course of the 6 months that you haven't been there. And now we're going to be there 5 times in the next 3 months, so they'll see us a lot and they'll kind of have an idea of remember all the things that we need and how things should look. The lift, which moves up and down, also wiggles side to side. So when we have a piano soloist, we can't put him on the lift, otherwise the piano will travel as he plays, and it all depends. I mean, most solo pianists are pretty heavy on the keys, so they kind of make that thing move around and the whole thing shakes. So we have to put everything upstage of the lift, so that makes spacing a little more challenging for us because we have such big orchestras. I think this orchestra is about 85. Oh, I'm just checking the plot again, you know. Always double check, make sure I didn't forget anything.
Front of house is basically everything that's not backstage. So box office, myself, so the house manager, patron services manager, all of the ushers, and we make sure that our patrons have a wonderful experience before the concert even begins. So usually this goes back here, but now they put a bench here. So I don't know where to put this. It's kind of tough when we're at different venues because we're just limited to what they have. For example, these things weigh a whole lot, so I hope when we have a new venue we don't have something that weighs 80 pounds. Please. So we don't know kind of what surprises are in store when we have to go to a venue, and we're just relying on what there is to find at each place.
Here's our will call tickets. They go in the box. Then there's things to plug in. There's always crawling somewhere involved. We have 2 laptops, and we will connect remotely to our server and to a program called Tessitura, which is our ticketing software. We over-prepare so that anytime there's a problem, we can solve it pretty quick. Because people are running late, and they've gone out to dinner, and they're excited about the concert, and there's always hubbub.
One of our issues when we travel from venue to venue is we don't have any consistency with some of the in-house instruments, piano being a specific one. For instance, today we found that there were a few problems with the piano that we couldn't really do anything about because the piano belongs to the college. So when you go from venue to venue, you have to kind of work within those parameters. You don't get to change their stuff. So as you can probably imagine, most instruments are kind of sensitive to heat, humidity, cold, all those things. Also, it's kind of a safety reason. You don't want to have anything taken out of the back of the truck. But mostly, it's about the humidity and heat and cold. We're going to try to keep these instruments as pristine as possible. You know, we spend a lot of money on each one, and you got to, be able to perform with them. And if you can't perform with them because they're stretched out or warped or ruined, well, it kind of defeats the purpose of what we do.
So right now we are headed over to the Van Wezel Performing Arts Hall for our next 3 concerts, which are Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon. One thing that would be easier if we had our own hall would be that they could use the performance space for all of the rehearsals. We would be able to set it up exactly the way that they want it, and it would be able to stay that way without being changed throughout the entire week until the end of the last concert.
A lot of patience is needed in those places because you're working with so many different people, and there are so many departments that you're working with within those buildings. You're working with security, and you're working with the stage crew, and you're working with their front of house people and their ticket office. The same thing goes for the Van Wezel. You work with so many different people, and especially across the street at the Van Wezel, you work with a group of guys that have been, in it for the last month too, and they have shows that rotate through there every day. So, they work a 16-hour day, and you come in the next day, you have to have a lot of patience because they're pretty chewed up already.
I have Dylan on stage, setting up all the recording equipment, and up here we're just setting up the playback. Every performance of the orchestra is recorded, except for when we have Pop's performances, which have a lot of copyright pieces, but all of our standard performances are all recorded for archival, and we've done a couple broadcasts with them as well for marketing uses and stuff. So it can be hard to get the proper mic placement, but we do a pretty good job. But it's definitely more challenging than if we just had mics installed in place. So
There's usually a little table here where I can put these. But each time I've come, it's been a different setup. So the Van Wezel has their own front of house team. They have their own house manager, lobby attendants, and their own ushers. So I come here to set up our equipment, our scanners, and then also to liaison with them and make sure that basically there is an orchestra representative front of house. You know, it's nice to have orchestra representation for our patrons when they come to our concerts.
On a typical Masterworks weekend, we have 3 full audiences who come to watch the orchestra play at Van Wezel. And the reason that we do the work that we do, the stage setups that we do, is so that we can make the best viewing opportunity for the patrons, because we don't want half of the concert to be us going out and moving chairs. We have to make it work as smoothly and as effectively as possible.
These weeks are hard because they're long and it's a lot of traveling. There's a lot of wear and tear on not just the people, but on the equipment too. You know, you roll those timpani cases and the chimes and all the things that you have that, although are very sturdy and solid looking, there's still, you know, a lot of miles on those wheels. It makes it fun, but it also makes it hard on all those instruments. So I think, you know, all in all for the week, it was a pretty good trip. You know, we like I said, we got everything back. We took everything there. We had, you know, several successful concerts. The audience and some patrons were very pleased, and I think ultimately the musicians were pleased with how things turned out. So yeah, it was a good week.